Well, so this is Leia's podcast, the first episode.
Leia's podcast.
How do you feel?
I feel great, man. I feel good. Happy to be starting this.
I'm very happy too. Very excited to be taking this step.
We've been talking about it for a while, for a long time.
For a long time.
Along with other friends. And yeah, it makes me happy that we've decided to actually go and do it.
Yeah, a lot of people talk. A lot of people
We talk
make
a lot as
plans.
well.
I make a lot of plans and then I don't follow through. So it makes me feel good that we've actually stepped out and taken a leap on this.
For sure.
But yeah, so I'm Chris and this is
Santiago.
Yeah, and we're friends from university. Met several years ago and have kept in close contact ever since.
Yeah.
We like to have deep conversations and debates. What's good is that we're able to have these debates and then go back to being friends after.
Very, very quickly. And our debates get heated as well, many times.
Yeah.
Over the lightest things or like more complex and deeper discussions, which kind of feeds into the name, right? Layers.
Yeah, layers. I mean, every interesting or worthwhile topic has layers to it. There's going to be something deeper than the surface level that if you peel things back and ask why, you look at different ways of thinking, schools of thought, how it makes you feel, how it can make others feel, or even people in the future. Once you look at things from different angles and consider all the different aspects, look at their different layers, you really understand the topic and you can get as much as you can out of it in a way that just having a little, happy-go-lucky, friendly conversation, won't always get you. So,
of course, and it's good to keep a balance of both.
Okay.
We have a lot of light-hearted conversations as well, and we will on the podcast. But layers is the depth of a conversation that maybe not most people have, and that we feel like because we already have it during our normal conversations, we can enhance it and see it through the podcast, almost as a responsibility. And we thoroughly enjoy it as well.
No, we do. I mean, layers as a name and a concept, I think it really resonates with us. Of course, the stuff we'll be talking about, like to think that we're thick-skinned, that we're layered people.
For sure.
But at the same time, it sounds pretty cool, man.
Yeah, it does. It's a cool name. We thought about many different names. They weren't really sounding too cool, and then this one made sense and sounded cool, which is, of course, why we went for it.
No, definitely a good foot to be sort of starting things off of. But yeah, we talked a fair amount about interesting topics, but what sort of things do we plan to talk about?
I mean, like I said, there'll be a mix of light-hearted conversations and deeper conversations. We'll be talking about social issues, current events, political issues, and then topics like fashion, sport, on a deeper level though.
Yeah. Everything that we talk about, we want to be looking at it in a holistic sense, man. I think that we want to come away from the conversation, feeling better for having that conversation. Sure. But at the same time, we want viewers to really feel like they understand whatever we've talked about much more, know. And I think that there's a lot of value that a podcast like this can create for both us and the audience. I mean, for us, it's going to help us refine our ideas in these topics, make them more fact-based, research-based, and just more well considered,
Of course. I mean, with having a podcast, in my opinion, just having an audience in general, you need to have responsibility with it. You're responsible for delivering, factual conversations, even just a good way of speaking, concise arguments that make sense and come across well. And, we to do this, we're going to have to improve all our skills, our speaking skills. This is our first podcast, so we'll have to refine them along the way and grow. And to us, that's a massive benefit.
Yeah, for sure. It's always better to become more articulate. That's one thing that I definitely feel like I can work on. Not that I'm not that I'm a waffler, but
we all can be.
I want to become more eloquent, more articulate, and I definitely think that doing something like this can achieve that. At the same time, though, you got the possibility of becoming better listeners. I'm reading this book called How to Win Friends and Influence People. It's by Dale Carnegie. Very good book, by the way. And one of the main points he stresses is, when you're building social connection or wanting to connect with people, you need to be able to listen well. And listening isn't just shutting up when someone's venting to you. It's having an active conversation where, you're able to further that conversation, dive into issues that need to be broken down further. You're asking the right questions in response to what's being said. So, I hope that we're able to become better listeners as a result of this too.
It's an active thing. You can't just sit back and shut up and
that's
and
it.
just stay quiet. That's not listening.
That's it.
So I completely agree with you. I grew up with my dad telling me that listening was one of the things I have to do the most. And he was an entrepreneur, and he always said that in negotiations he'd be the last to speak. And throughout a conversation, he would listen as carefully as he can to put himself at an advantage for when he does eventually communicate his thoughts, which by the end of listening can alter. So it's, again, a massive skill, and I hope that we can improve it along this journey.
For sure. Then for the audience too, I mean, we hope that we'd be exposing you guys to interesting things, to new ways of thinking through things.
Thought-provoking.
Thought-provoking stuff that you can work into your own worldviews, and that you can work into your own ways of living, become better people through that. We also want you guys to be involved in the discussion, right?
As much as possible.
Yeah, like this is we're gonna be talking about things, but we really encourage, if you hear something that makes you feel some type of way, whether you agree or disagree, or you've got more information, get in the comments, tell us about it, become part of the discussion. We want this to be a continual learning process for sort of everyone involved, right?
Yeah. I mean, we've spoken about a plan to have certain conversations and then revisit them a few months later, based off the feedback and based off new information that we acquire, hopefully through the audience and through any other source. But we're not having conversations to put our ideas out there as if they're set in stone. We're having conversations to enhance our ideas and grow. And we can come across as arrogant sometimes, or certain of things, but we're not. I would be happy to be proven wrong. I want to sit back and hear a point of view that makes me think again and change my own point of view.
In fact, I like being proven wrong to an extent. I like being right, obviously. But, when you're being proven wrong, as you said, your mind is more open, things are better reasoned. I back myself to have ideas that are fair and reasoned. And so when they are proven wrong, I must have come across an actual good idea. And that's not coming from an arrogant sense. It's just from a case of, wow, this is learning,
Yeah. So, I mean, no egos in the way.
Yeah.
Trying to be, as not stubborn at all. And that's the way we can grow. I've encountered many people, and I was definitely one at one point that would let ego and stubbornness get in the way from accepting a better point of view, or new information that kind of took away from my initial argument, and it just completely halts your growth.
That's it. And we really see that in society a lot. People have their ways of thinking and ways of doing that are so set in stone. On social media, it's so easy to find people of the same thought pattern as you. So you don't actually need to change how you think. You're never really challenged unless you want to be challenged. And even in the systems we grow up in and exist in now, there's a lot of woke stuff about, changing the status quo. But that actual process of breaking something down, questioning yourself, becoming better, I really don't think that that's pushed at all in any meaningful sense.
And the world is also divided, where people believe so much in being allocated to one side or the other that they can't sit at a table and truly discuss something through. And I've sat at a table with people who are of an opposing view, and there's just this emotional uproar for one of my opinions that you just can't have a conversation. And then when you sit back and you have the conversation, you realize that you're so much closer to agreeing than you initially think.
Yeah.
But people like to label. They like to say, "Oh, you think this, or you belong to this party, or this view, or this,"
Exactly. Yeah.
And it's, yeah. I mean, I hope we can break that down, and I hope we can attract viewers and listeners from both sides of an argument to have productive conversations, to come closer to solutions that can apply to our life, ourselves, and society as a greater cause.
But then really, and this can sort of lead on into the rest of the conversation, but as we do talk through things, and as we do bring together ideas from both sides, the best ideas from both sides, evaluate pros and cons, we hope to sort of create a sort of way of thinking or way of living that people can apply to their lives, that we set out, that we're actually aspiring to ourselves. We may make some interesting comments in this podcast about how you may want to do things, or how you can react to things or think about things, but a lot of this is preaching to ourselves, right? Obviously we're still very young, and we're trying to be the best people that we can be.
I feel like we have a good foundation of morals and values that we try and chase and implement every day. That doesn't mean we do so every day, because it is really hard. But it gives me confidence that I know that I'm on the right track. I aspire to go in that direction more and more, and by refining our conversations and by being introduced to new topics and new facts around them, we can hopefully do this ourselves and project it to the audience, like you're saying.
For sure. And
like you said, there'll be interesting comments, but also arrogant, and it seems like we can do things, and we know what to do, and it might come across like that, but really we're on a journey. So
for sure. Look, so this podcast, we're trying to do many different things with it. We're trying to become more fulfilled through it. If we're able to live in these sort of ways, in these reasoned and thought through type of ways, then we should be more fulfilled at the end of it. But we've noticed that there's so much lack of fulfillment in the people that we see around us, in society in general, and also in ourselves too. There's a desire for more. And if we look at what's the thing that you do most, well, it's going to be your work, your professional life. It takes up 5 days a week, most of the hours in those 5 days. And so we're at a point where we're trying to use this podcast in order to sort of get more fulfillment out of our professional lives. And we thought quite sort of deeply about why so many people feel unfulfilled, in their work, and in a lot of their lives generally, but particularly their work. And so, yeah.
I mean, before diving deeper into that, I completely agree. This is a way for us to become more entrepreneurial.
Yeah.
Not that we are unhappy with our jobs. I mean, I can speak for myself. I'm very happy with my job. I really do like it. But I've always want to have my own thing as well. I've always wanted to. I mean, we like you mentioned at the start of the podcast, we've tried things in the past. Some things are still ongoing. And then I've always had my own kind of side hustle, or whatever you want to call it, on the side as well. So this is a great addition to that, and I hope that it can grow and take up a lot of our time and lead to a lot of fulfillment and grind and satisfaction. But yes, especially through social media, we can see that a lot of people, and even speak for some of our friends, are lacking that excitement and fulfillment at the end of the day to almost be proud of what they've done the past day, the past week, the past month, the past year, the past 5 years, etc.
No, that's very true. And I mean, people do a range of different things in their professional lives. They can have 9-to-5s, they can work for themselves, they can be self-employed in other different ways. There's a lot of different things you can do with your time, right? But I think that at sort of the heart of the issue is that there's a disconnect between knowing yourself and actually how you choose to act. Now, what that means is that people aren't really being introspective. People aren't really looking at the things that they want to achieve, the things that they like doing, the sort of people they want to interact with, the environments that they want to, sort of encounter, things like that. People aren't looking within themselves before they make life decisions, and that then leads to a lack of fulfillment because you get a misalignment of things like your passions and what you're doing. You're not going to be getting as much responsibility as you want potentially. Might not be in an environment that's suited to how you work or, how you thrive. And then that can lead to comfort.
Comfort is the most dangerous thing because time flows by faster with comfort than when you're having fun. You can look back at a year and really think about what you did, and except the few holidays or the few weekends, everything kind of blends together. And yeah, I think that's the main cause of this unsatisfaction and unfulfillment that a lot of people experience and that we experience as well.
Yeah, I mean, I want to go through sort of a few of the reasons in more depth first, right? The first is that sort of misalignment of passions. And, when you think about yourself, think about people in general, it's very rare that someone will actually find their passion, that thing that will enthuse them and get them out of bed no matter what, that thing that they were made to do. But ideally, you'd be doing that in your work, right?
I would disagree with you slightly because I don't entirely believe in the concept of passion.
Fair.
For me, I've got interests. Sport is one of my biggest interests. Having conversations like this is a big interest. But I think I would be passionate about any job that had that gave me certain attributes. If I was responsible over something, I would be passionate over it. If I sold a product that I produced, not myself physically, but my company produced for, a certain specific set of people, and I had that responsibility, I would be passionate over that product, whether it was, the new football or like some toilet paper, I don't know. So I think I agree with passion being a driver for fulfillment, but I don't necessarily agree with having to find a passion as if it's a topic at school, between mathematics, geography, and history.
You see, like there, I would say that you can have passions to different degrees, or, there are different levels to it. So you could be passionate about, I don't know, making clothes, right?
Can you do something passionately without being passionate about what you're doing? Like inherently feeling passionate? Because I believe you can.
Not in a sustained, not over a sustained period of time, I don't think.
So my counter would be that I think you can if what that's giving back to you are, categories or attributes of things
of what you want.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Because I think you can grow a passion. I think you can suddenly become passionate about something that you didn't know you really cared about.
Yeah. No, you know what, that is actually quite fair. I mean, I guess that's where the introspection comes in, right? You have to really understand what it is that you're going to want in the end from your job. What it is, and so then you can be more intentional about the job that you're going to be doing. You also have to you also have to be very clear about the things you don't want to be doing. And that's where I actually think people have a better idea of what they may want to be doing as opposed to what they don't want to be doing.
I mean, I understand what you're saying. Yeah. I think also by being unsure, a lot of people fall into the first job. You always kind of accept one of the first offers you get. You're not going to reject an offer that pays you well and that you're coming straight out of uni, you've already got debt over your head. You're not just going to say no. I want to wait another few months and try apply. Some people do it, but most people don't. And once you're in that job, without knowing exactly what you want to do or not knowing what you don't want to do, also because of the lack of experience, you get comfortable. You stay within that job. You go through 2, 3, 4 years. That suddenly become 10. And a lot of people end up changing jobs, of course, but they end up staying in the same line of work. They move to another company which might make them work less or might pay them more, but at the end of the day, they're still doing the same thing that they originally fell into, not knowing what they liked or didn't like.
Yeah.
I think introspection comes in maybe after a few years. It can come in at any point, but more likely it's going to come in after a few years of experience.
Yeah.
And along with that introspection, I think you need a big portion of bravery to say, you know what, especially if you don't, many people are in conditions where they can't just be like, okay, I'm quitting my job.
Yeah.
But you know what, I'm going to start looking more into what I can be more passionate about. And that takes a lot. It really does take a lot.
It does. It does.
It's a multi-variable equation of many different things that contribute to unfulfillment or a lack of satisfaction.
I think, one other thing to consider is that in many people's professional situations, the idea of creativity isn't really central to their jobs.
Can you define creativity? Because my first thought of creativity is someone drawing or someone, singing.
Well, look, there's a couple definitions of creativity. The one that will make sense to most people is that it's expressing your ideas or a concept in an original way, in a way that's, true to yourself. But I tend to extend that into the process of creation and being able to channel that creativity, that exploration, expression of original ideas into something meaningful, into something where you're there at the source and then you're there at the end and you're there for that full process of planning and improving and then producing and finalizing at the end, right? And so
obviously something that's personally meaningful, not that the world would define as meaningful.
For sure. And when we think of personally meaningful, you're making a positive change or a change that you care about. Either, you're growing or you're producing and you're creating an outcome that matters to you, right? And so I feel like so many jobs, whether it be 9 to 5 or your own business, don't really allow you to engage in that creation process where you're accessing pure creativity, very much.
Of course, it wouldn't even make sense for them to let you engage in that process.
Of course.
They need tasks to be executed at a rate that they deem successful within a time space that they deem successful. So it doesn't make sense, right? But I completely agree with you.
Yeah, of course it's quite, idealistic, man. And honestly, it makes me think of this. There's no good without bad, so there'd be no fulfilled without unfulfilled. Maybe a certain percentage of people have to accept that their lot is to be unfulfilled, otherwise. No, that's a joke.
But it's it's a thing where like most people are gonna have to be doing repetitive tasks for a company if we want those companies as a society to work. Those companies will always pay a price that people will accept, and so people will do those jobs, but you don't necessarily have to find fulfillment through that particular job.
So it's interesting because what you said is not all jobs are gonna allow you to channel that creativity, right? We've talked about passions, we've talked about creativity. Now, as you also said, it's a multivariate thing where there's so many different things that in the right proportions would lead you to fulfillment, right? So let's say you choose to do a job. You accept the fact that it's not going to let you be creative, but then it might give you autonomy. It might give you responsibility. It might give you
time with your family,
like a range of other things that when things are all considered, it can lead to a fulfilled situation, right? And so I guess like the whole thing about introspection is that understanding all of these different things you could get or experience in a job, and understanding firstly, which ones you value the most, because you want to target that when looking for a job or starting a business. But then also understanding that, as I said, firstly, no job is perfect. No job will give you all of these different things without there being some compromise. So, yeah.
Of course. I mean, it's a multivariable equation that most people don't, look at to solve, essentially. And you said one thing one time that was, if you feel it's wrong, then it's wrong. Otherwise, there's no wrong 9 to 5 job. We're not saying that if you're doing repetitive tasks at your day-to-day job, then it's wrong. If you look at your whole life and feel like everything else isn't speaking and making you feel satisfaction or fulfillment, then you should reconsider. You should approach it differently. This is our way of approaching our situation differently to find some of that. And we don't know if this is going to work, but we can say that the past business that we partook in definitely filled some of those gaps. So we're doing it again. We're doing it in a way that is closely aligned to our interests. And hopefully we'll deliver some satisfaction and everything else that comes with it.
Yeah. It's about knowing your interests, right? And we've sort of alluded to it earlier on, but there's a lot of different things that can make up someone's priorities. Now, success in their job might be one, fulfillment in their job might be one. Other things like their children, their health, their hobbies, right? You need to sort of work out which one of these things are most important, and sort of to what degree and what order, what you're willing to compromise on, right? Because maybe maybe changing your professional situation into something that will get you more fulfilled isn't actually right for your situation,
Of course.
Actually, other priorities, it makes sense to prioritize other things.
Of course. It's just you don't want time to blend in together, and then if you don't, actively pursue what you think is right for you, then eventually you run out of time.
Yeah.
Eventually, as we grow, we develop more responsibilities. We're at a point now where we are able to dedicate our life to this, to our job. In the future, we wouldn't have been able to. Situations change. You take up more responsibility once you have a family, once you maybe have a mortgage or other sort of commitments.
Yeah.
And so, in my opinion, you have to act in the moment that something can be changed. And you have to try at least. If you don't try, then at least I would live in constant regret.
You have to try. Oftentimes with these things, when you get an urge to change something or do something, take action, it's there for a reason, and it's not going to go away. This is a nagging feeling that will only grow with time.
For sure.
And only be amplified once you reach a state of regret because you've missed the opportunity,
No, yeah, but I've always looked at it that I would like to fill my spare time and time that I feel I waste with something that contributes to my career and my growth. At the same time, I know that at least for myself, the next best alternative, and probably an even better alternative most of the time, is creating unique experiences. It's memories. It's almost like a catalog of memory. I mean, I feel that if people are in situations where they are unfulfilled, and they are also in situations where they can't really get out of their job, they can't change much. They've maybe applied to many different jobs. To me, wasting time at home, to me sitting back and going through your phone or watching series or everything like that repetitively is very, very bad. Like, to me, it's probably the worst thing. One of my biggest fears is not having a catalog of memories and experiences that I can look back at and think they shaped me. They gave me unbelievable moments with people, whether it's like I look back at some of my worst experiences in the moment where I was either frightened or scared or anything as great stories, as great moments where I had to problem solve, and it helped me grow. And essentially everything to say that you should really get out there. You should really live through things, and whether that's playing for a football team that goes through a season and winning and losing, and being part of something, or picking up your passport and finding the nearest place you can go by yourself or with friends, to enhance that side of life.
It is true, man. You can't waste time in this life. The one thing that you don't get back, that you never can get back. And so, don't waste time in your professional situation. It's something that affects us all. It's easy for us to focus on that just because of how important that is for so many people. But as Santi said, you have to ask that question and take that action in all aspects of your life. Take action. Like, am I doing what's really going to fulfill me? What's really going to bring me closer to my goals, right? And so, yeah, that's really what we're trying to do with this podcast.
It's the main reason for it.
Exactly.
Of course, I think the ideas we put across were clear, probably inefficient, and probably definitely could have been spoken better. That's something you'll have to give us time with, because we're growing. It's our first podcast, our first try, and we can only improve from here on out.
But yeah, this has been Layers Podcast.
This has been the first episode of Layers Podcast.
We'll see you guys soon.